Good to see large crowd here. I didn't expect this many. Thanks everyone for joining us in. My name is Amandeep. I work with the BEC as a principal developer where we actually build team of talent, technical talent to groom them for future skills. And today I have three experts with me to talk about the CTO role, setting the vision and strategy for success. So I would first begin with the introductions, maybe with you. Who
Sure.
you begin? Yeah.
My name is Lillelund. I come from IBM Denmark. And my role as a CTO in IBM is to take the technology that comes out of IBM research and development and adapt it for the Danish market.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Anne-Sofie, and I've been CTO and Chief Innovation Officer at Nemlig.com online groceries for the past 4 years, and now trying to search for a new exciting opportunity to make use of my talent.
Yeah, and I'm Martin. I'm VP at Trustpilot, where I've been 7 years, growing it from 60 to 800 people, and growing it both architecturally and as an organization. In tech, we went from around 12, 14 people to 140 in that time.
And now how many you are?
Almost 800 globally.
That's fine. Okay. Well, that's a pretty large scale of development as well expansion. We'll come to that. I was reading an old article on Harvard Business Review, which says it was 2013 article actually, not very recent. It says CTO of the future will be defined as not as Chief Technology Officer, but Chief Transformation Officer. And since technology is just a transformation enabler, and it says eventually it boils down to CTO success will be defined by the team of talent, the people they build in, the people they invest in, the hiring pipeline they have. So my first question, which actually begin, is suppose I'm an engineer and I have certain set of skills and which many audience can relate to, and I have a particular back-end skill, particular front-end skill, particular web technology I'm aware with. But when I go search for an appropriate job for myself, and the job description looks like a literally Christmas shopping list. Yeah, it has so many things mentioned. Since you come from Namely shopping, so Sophie, I would like to begin with you. Can we do something to make the job descriptions simplistic that the bare minimum can be advertised and the rest of it can follow in a Skype interview, maybe first interaction?
Well, I think sometimes companies put technologies in job descriptions because they want to show off the fact that they're using new and exciting technologies. But I think it's important that we don't look at developers and only think about the current skills they have in terms of technologies. I think the best developer I probably worked with, he at a point had Java expert as his headline on LinkedIn, and I was like, what are you doing? You're an expert at problem solving, architecture, all these things, not some specific programming language. So I think it's really important that we recognize people not just for the buzzwords, but also for the full set of skills that they bring to the table.
Yeah, but you also highlighted a question, or the company also wants to showcase that we are working on this. And Martin or Jan, you would like to add something there?
Well, skills are the core of our business. We will be nowhere if we do not have the appropriate skills. And attracting skill is challenging, especially in these times where innovation moves so fast and new technologies are emerging almost every day. What we try to do is obviously to provide a setting that gives as much or provides so much enticement that we get a large number of people to seek our jobs, obviously. But it's also important for those that do seek jobs with us that they show us what they can do. And I agree with you that putting Java on the top of the list might not target you for the right position. So it's important that you consider the message when approaching. But we do tests and interviews and etc. So oftentimes we get to adjust the picture that we get on first hand.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. We had I'll tell a story. We had a problem with talent. We didn't think we got like the proper quality applicants. We had the classic Christmas shopping list, and people applied. So we thought, like, let's try something else. Let's try something different. So we basically replaced all of that with one statement. It said, "Follow the white rabbit," and there was a link. And you click that link, you were offered to either get the blue pill or the red pill. You know, if you're familiar with the Matrix, it's kind of like from there. If you pressed the blue pill, went back to reality, you went to Bing, by the way. But if you took the red pill, you were into like a code challenge, right? So we thought, let's try this out. We're not sure if this is going to work. Let's just launch it, see what happens. And we got like 30, 40 high quality applicants within a month. Mm-hmm. It was quite amazing. People really were like caught up by this theme, and the challenge was also like at the right level that people wanted to solve it. Actually, like a few months later, we also released another one, and I met somebody at a meetup, and they said, "Hey, when are you gonna release the next one?" Like, what? Next one? Oh, the next code challenge. We've been like combating at work who can do the fastest implementation. Like, all right, that was pretty cool.
That's nice. But the hiring decision doesn't close there. So this is my next question is basically on that many smart programmers complain that in Denmark that they miss out getting accepted by Danish companies, and the reason often given to them is culture fit. Is culture fit a sugar-coated name for the hiring bias that we continue to hang on to? Are we really open to diverse views? A diversified person, maybe who doesn't like to eat lunch with others, and we call him, "You're not culture fit."
I'd like to comment on that.
Yeah.
I think we were one of the first companies in the US to have a diversity statement.
That's why this question is for Danish companies.
But we have inherited that in IBM Denmark as being a daughter company of IBM USA, which means also that we've had a diversity statement in Denmark since the 50s. And I do not recognize what you're saying there. We do not hire people because of color or faith or orientation one way or another. What we do is we match them to the job, and those that have the best skills will get the job, regardless of who they are.
That's nice. You'd like to say anything?
Yeah, so I think there's I think we all try to do that, but there's still some inherent biases. You try to look for somebody who's like yourself, and there's certain things you can do. I think culture fit is an excuse a lot of the time, because it's easy for a recruiter it's hard for a recruiter to say, yeah, because of this and this and this. It's like, no, culture fit. So recently we tried in Trustpilot to use the word culture add. So to get rid of this culture fit idea, because you might add to a culture by bringing something else, by bringing something different, right? Having some diversity. But I think there's a lot of tricks you can employ in the process to maybe remove the name, the gender, like in the when you look at CVs, things like that, to make it more even. We also said, well, you cannot talk to each other after an interview. You have to put down your notes first before you can talk, because you also affect each other and how you think about a candidate by talking right after. So we try to always make it more and more fair.
That's nice. Yes, we are rushing to... Yeah, before I go to my next question, yes, we'll come back to this diversity part once again. Jan, it's actually coming for you. So, and ladies can contribute. So, I would like to quote some numbers and how big are the losses when Danish government decides to make investments in IT. So, there was a land registry project. 76 million Danish was original plan. 120 million Danish was spent. Instead of 1.2 years, the project got over in 2.7 years, and it was forced success, like monopolized way of success. There's a police records management system. 2007 to 2012, 173 million Danish was the original projection. 354 million Danish was spent, and it never got implemented. EFI debt collection system. Danish government again 144 million was a projection. 600 million Danish was spent. This is taxpayers' money. After 8.5 years, the project was scrapped. The question to you as a large corporate, IBM, is, okay, if anybody in the audience in Sweden, from Sweden, I can give some Swedish numbers as well. But let's skip for that. You want it? Okay, so for Försäkringskassan in 2010, Swedish government spent 10 billion Swedish kroners and it was scrapped. Post-Siebel system in 2014, where 300 million Swedish kronor was spent for a police records project, and project was scrapped. So this money has been kind of thrown and never came back. So the question is, do you think privatization is an option, and how much you as tech leaders would like to persuade the decision makers for better IT implementation, faster IT success rate, because this kind of money is getting lost, and this is taxpayers' money.
It's a difficult question because there are a lot of interests involved in these kinds of projects. And often when we look at these projects, they are of a one-of-a-kind kind of projects. So if you're doing a land registry for Denmark, it will be unique for Denmark, etc. So privatization will be difficult because it's going to still be a one-off thing. So I'm not sure that there will be benefits to be had there. But many of the projects you mentioned have been conducted in a period where the development method was primarily the waterfall method. And we know large projects, when run well using waterfall, is a good way of running it. However, we have also seen that when these kinds of projects are subject to a lot of changes, due to legislation, due to change in environment, etc., they have a tendency to capsize. So today, Agile, Scrum, etc., is the buzzword. Start small, fail fast, pivot, might help this out. But maybe also when we're talking about the sizes of these projects, certain techniques from the waterfall method could also be beneficial. But a switch from public to private may not be the right way to go. Maybe educating both the contractor, but also the public sector on how to run these kinds of things may be better.
Yes. So as technology leaders, what would be your advice to public sector not to kind of blow this kind of money off?
Well,
maybe any of you can go. Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that you mentioned is they have a lot of stakeholders, and I think one thing they could do is try and set up a really simple control structure where someone really has the responsibility for actually making the product decisions that can lead to finalizing a project. I think also one of the things to look at from Estonia is that they've really very much looked at the infrastructure and the architecture first before they started building a lot of applications, and I think that has really helped them become successful based on, relatively simple methods actually.
Yeah, we have the Baltics are a little bit special case. I think we have an office in Vilnius, Lithuania, and they set up like Invest Lithuania, a kind of like an organization that met with us. I'm meeting with them soon, and they ask like, how can we help? Like, how can we help you as a company present here in Lithuania? And my theory is they can do this because they're a young country. They didn't build up 70 years of legislation they have to adhere to, so they can they're more agile, if you will.
Leapfrog technology.
Yeah, lean country, agile country.
Yeah. Okay. And now I want to run a quick question on diversity. Yeah, we come back to it. Any of you who hired any managers from outside Denmark?
We have managers from outside Denmark all the time.
Okay.
We are a large company, worldwide. I can't remember the exact
I mean, in
number,
Danish
but
setup.
around. No, but listen, we are around 400,000 people, and we're changing jobs all the time. We're not changing within a country. We're changing globally. So we get managers from other countries to Denmark, but we're also moving managers elsewhere. But we're also hiring across borders. So we see people living in Sweden, working in Denmark. I think we even have a Spaniard who has his family in Barcelona, working in Copenhagen, and sometimes remotely. So I don't see geographical barriers as a true barrier for the way we do business.
Yeah. And maybe if you would like to add, basically the extension of this question is, how do you ensure when you hire a manager from outside that that manager is integrated into company culture?
That's a good question. You could say that culture fit, culture add is something we look for. No, I think both when we hire engineers and managers, we're looking for mindsets primarily. As Sophie said, it's about mindset. They can learn the skills if they're smart and really willing to learn, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't put Java developer either on my resume. I would just say engineer or something like that. So we hire from mindset. Are you, pretty aligned with us on being agile and being having the same kind of idea of where we want to go with people management?
And there's a different definition of agile if you ask anyone else. Yeah. So the common definition of agile, it was not technical here, is agile is when you are not fragile. My next question actually begins from that side because you have raised investments. So how important is CTO's role in driving investor confidence? We don't see much CTOs on the board assuring or kind of convincing the investors. So what has been your experience as Trustpilot has been raising money continuously?
So we have a very strong CEO who is really good at this. That's one reason. And we've been able to show pretty strong year-on-year revenue growth. So I think it depends a lot on what the investors are looking for. And the strong year-on-year growth kind of made them happy, if you will. So a lot of the technicalities and the product, they didn't dive too much into that, at least in our case.
Yep. Anybody else would like to go on this?
Yeah, so I think one of the key things that the board should be asking CTOs about is the scalability of the underlying technical parts of the business, because that can really kill the kind of growth that you'd want if you don't have that. So I think it's key for boards to also have people who can ask technical questions to some level to actually be able to ensure that they're not buying something that's not going to scale to the next level.
Yeah, but having a CTO in that convincing conversation, I know you have a good CEO that you gave an example of, but I'm yet to see those examples where the CTO is giving a confirmation to the investor hey, this technology really works like this, and that's how you put your money in. Right now, do you see that level of technology engagement or interest from investors to kind of hey, I really want to talk to your CTO. How does it really work? Do you see any of these conversations around your ecosystem, other companies?
Well, I think certainly most investors would do some level of technical due diligence where they would most likely speak to the CTO.
Yes. So we have few audience questions now, which is in front of you. So we will be picking the one at the top, since we have a few minutes. So the first question goes, how do you enable a first-time CTO to be successful? Our head of engineering is a hands-on engineer and never done the people and process side of things. What are your thoughts and advice? Very good question. Whoever asked.
Should I?
Yes.
Know him? Well, the CTO role is of a leader, so it's important to have deep technical skills, but it's also important to have people skills. You need to be deep in certain technologies, preferably your core technologies. You need to have a wide knowledge of other technologies that give you the overview of where you're going, your technical vision, but you also need a vision for the people that you lead. And obviously a technical background for the CTO is paramount, but if you're not able to convey that message or that vision, you will lose people in the process. So people skills are important, and they are acquired. So a first-time CTO, as the question went on here, is maybe network with, find a mentor, move into CTO networks, learn from others what they're doing, perhaps find somebody that you can confide in, bounce problems off him or her, and improve.
I agree. You need to have some level of people skills because, on the C level, you really need to agree on the direction, right? So if there's like a minor disagreement on C level, that disagreement will blow up at lower level and really create silos across the company. Now there's differences between having a CTO in like an 800 people company and a 20-man company.
You don't have a CTO right now.
We do.
Okay.
We do have a CTO, but so creating that alignment in the C level is paramount, and I think for me that comes first. And the technical ability, you can use people around you again, but people skills. So that's second.
But I think it's also not necessarily given that the person who is part of founding it may be really good on the technical side will be the best CTO. I think it can be an important process to kind of go through for that person to think about if that's a way they want to go. They might need additional education. They might need to spend their time differently. And not everyone's going to like that. And that's perfectly okay to say, I need a different kind of role.
Good. So we have time for one more question. And I think this is a very interesting question coming up again. What should a non-technical founder look for a co-founder in CTO?
Should I?
Yes.
Well, obviously somebody to complement him. I think that he's not looking for a copy of himself or herself. One that has the technical insight to actually get you where you're going, but also, again, have the leadership skills, and they may be the rapport necessary to create the sense of one direction within top management. For when you start building your team, it's paramount, I think. Yeah.
I think it also depends a lot on the type of startup you're doing. Is it a thing where you're going to be a two-people startup for a long time? You need someone who's really happy coding stuff themselves. If you're doing something where you're playing on a rapid scale, you need to look at the leadership qualities a lot earlier than you otherwise would.
And I think that's usually your startup small. Obviously, I think getting things done, just going 100 miles an hour in one direction is super important. You don't have time to do things perfect. If you do things perfect, you're gonna, never get anywhere. So just, compromise as much as you can in the beginning. It's about growth, right, in the beginning, and you need really to get something out there and get traction. You can care about quality later.
So what I'm hearing is like a move fast and break things.
Absolutely.
I expected that. Yeah, we are taking one more question. Yeah. So the question is, how do you discover and use the right edge technologies? In other words, how do you navigate in the jungle of new tech and make sure you're not disrupted? I would like to kind of add to this question because this is one of the questions I had also framed. It's like as CTOs, sometimes people look at you like a stockbroker. You have an opinion about every stock. Like every technology you should have an opinion about. So that's one part of it. And second is like picking the right one, picking the right for your use. So whoever would like to go.
Well, I think first of all, a lot of the disruption happening is on the business side and not necessarily the technical side. So it's really, really important you understand the business side as well as the CTO, because that's really what's going to make or break you. It's probably not going to be if you're on the latest technology of everything. You have to have the technology that works with your business.
I agree. Get the job done. That's important. And often you have to know as a CTO that moving into bleeding edge technology, you might burn your fingers because it might not be mature enough. There might be flaws that you need to spend too much time on fixing, etc. So creating the right mix of technology choices in getting to where you need to go is really important. Sometimes you need to be in the forefront. We just launched a new generation of quantum computers. Obviously, this is in between the edge of research and business. But if you're looking at a startup going into food tech, for instance, you wouldn't want to start experimenting with too many new technologies. You're more on to what kind of business are you going after. Start looking at the footprint where you start make money fast, and then maybe you can add stuff later on that brings you more to the edge.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like you need to focus on value creation, mostly all of the time. But there's other reasons why you might want to explore newer technologies, more interesting technologies. This is also a hiring thing, a talent thing. Like people are attracted to certain technologies. But you can burn your fingers. We burned our fingers as well. Only like we had one team doing one technology, but weren't able to get other teams to pick it up. And after they tried it a little while, we said, okay, maybe we shouldn't build new things in this technology. And 3 months later, that team was gone. Right. So yeah, it's a balance.
And just to add from my experience on this part, sometimes you're more free to experiment on changing the technology stack based on less compliant environment you're in. But if you're in a heavy regulated audit every 6 months kind of environment, changing technology also doesn't come easy.
Oh,
so
certainly not.
You have to take the decisions much earlier.
You have to be very careful when you're looking at compliance. For instance, banking, they're certainly not the early adopters in most of the technology coming out. Again, startups in blockchain, for example, they're right out there on the edge. So it really depends on where you are, what kind of business you're trying to create that drives or dictates how venturesome you can be.
So the answer I collate is like, it depends. Yeah? Yeah? That's a very intelligent answer to conclude. Thank you everyone. Thanks to the panelists. Thanks everyone in the audience. And we are here for some more intimate conversations down after this stage. Otherwise, we'll see you next time, next year. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was super interesting. Some nice.